We've all heard about powder coating on alternative substrates, but seriously, can you really? Today's guest certainly thinks so, but this is no sales pitch. We drill down what it takes to launch a new innovation and scale the $150 billion paint coatings market. The fact is, it's been a closely guarded secret until now. We're uncovering the facts about how it took a partnership across 3 industries to bring this product to market. Could it be the beginnings of a whole new industry? Get ready to level up your powder coater game. Today we welcome Chris Redding from IFS Coatings to the show. Welcome, Chris. How are you doing today?
Howdy, I'm doing great. It's January the 8th. I'm looking forward to adding this to my celebration of Elvis's birthday. So.
Well, we can't say what day we recorded because
we're not never mind. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it at all.
I don't care. It's okay. We sometimes pre-record everything, and we never know when we're going to launch the episode. But Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? And I'm happy to have you here today because you're here to kind of introduce us to a new product that you have. But before we get into that, let's hear a little bit more about you and where you come from.
Okay. Well, way back in the old days, let's see, in '96, I was discharged from the Air Force, and my first job outside the military was as a quality systems manager for a powder coating producer named Courtaulds Coatings, which was an English company that's since been acquired and moved on. I was on the powder side until I think 2002, in various assignments, finally commercial eventually, and then moved on the raw materials side and was there working for a couple of different resin companies until really the end of 2018 when IFS kind of appealed to my ego, and so I was still young enough to do a new market development again, and so I bought it, and here I am. So
yeah, they are a good company, and I got a chance to interview them recently, and just kind of really got it. I got the culture, I got the products, I got everything from them. So I really looking forward to ordering more powder from them this year because of the culture that they cultivate there. So I'm happy that you're working for them.
I think you'll have an unparalleled experience. I don't know if you heard that any on your other call, but that's a big part of what we are, is all about making an unparalleled service, unparalleled quality, everything else. So.
Yeah, and just the dedicatedness of the 2 guys that I interviewed there, they believed in the culture, and that's so important part of any company culture. Mm-hmm. But I want to know, okay, so you've had some experience in quite a number of years in the business of mm-hmm. powder coating, but what drives you today to do an innovative product? Because, powder coatings are kind of boring,
Are you kidding me? Yeah, I must be a geek because I've always been excited to be in the industry, and there was I think, what was it, back in 2013, I was on the PCI board, and it was suggested that at the time we were just maturing as an industry and as a technology, and I said, hell no, we're that declaration of maturity is premature because there's a whole lot of places to go for powder that we haven't been yet. And at that time I was thinking about it even in the context of metal, but whenever I consider non-metal and something that's at least 10 times bigger than metal, man, I'm excited all over again.
Yeah.
So we are still quite young as a finishing technology. And, no matter when we think we get there, there's always somebody that surprises me with some type of material or process innovation that changes everything again. When I started, with my last company, I was promoting technology for low temperature cut substrates, and we were thinking at that time MDF. Well, no, now we're doing hardwoods. I know a company doing they're doing drywall for prefab housing with powder paint. They're doing cladding.
Yeah.
So it keeps getting bigger. So this baby, I'm going to say maybe we're late adolescent as an industry, but we're nowhere near. We're still quite young and have quite a ways to go.
I agree. That was a trick question. But no, I agree with you. And I mean, in terms of like a custom coder's point of view, I mean, our projects are widely varied, and every day is a challenge, or every day is something new that your customer brings you that just, and I think personally for me, like on social media and wherever I hang out, I'm seeing innovation coming up from the bottom, where customers or custom coders are thinking outside the box, trying to change different ways that they do things or make things faster or just customize it perfectly for them. And that's exciting to me. So I guess what I meant by that question was it's interesting to see something innovative coming from the top down, I guess, because most of it is just line coders ordering powder. Just give me my $5.99 per pound powder and I'll be fine. I'll go away and, whatever. But that's what I mean by that is that it's been, when you came to me with this product, I was just like, oh, wow. Or actually, I found out about it on that podcast with IFS and Jason and Kyle. And so that led me to want to talk to you more about this product because it just seemed so incredible. And of course, our background is we started as painters and we painted a lot of cabinets. So when we, it intrigued me right away just because we know the troubles of that. And a lot of powder coaters come from painting background. I don't know how many come from painting cabinets, but it takes over the whole shop. You have to do multiple sides. You have to sand in between coats. You have to wait for dry times and cure times overnight, maybe longer. It's can be a logistical and exhausting nightmare for anybody in that industry. So I get it. I get when I saw the product, I got it right away. But how do you, and maybe we can kind of start talking about this product because like, how do you convince those are you trying to convince those that are already painters into getting into this product, or are you trying to convince powder coaters to get into this product?
Yes. Yeah. So it is a push-pull thing, right? And so when I believe in a concept of, look, if somebody's already figured something out eventually over time and bled for it, maybe you should learn from them before bleeding yourself, right? And if I think about a wonderful story of growing a new market space with a new technology and with no infrastructure in place, I don't have to go outside of our industry to do that. It was powder paint on metal. I got there young enough to see those years where you grew double digits just because you were in the business. And really, when I asked the old guard veterans about what happened and how these things advanced, it was always through custom coaters. The custom coaters were the leading edge, right? So if I take a lot of time and promote to big OEMs, right, and get these guys excited, and I've been through this before IFS actually, when I was around with partner companies, and we're going to these great big brands that everybody recognizes and get them very excited. And then the first thing they ask me is, okay, who can I send this to get coded? Well, I kind of don't have anybody yet, right? and so I'll say, okay, well, all you have to do is decommission your line, install a powder line, train a bunch of people, teach them how to do it, learn how to do it yourself, and then switch. And nobody was buying into that. And so we come back to basics and say, what do I need first? I need, I've got the equipment side partners in play, people I trust that know their business, that work with me on development and everything else to create this robust solution. And it doesn't happen without a coder. And so my first horizon key thrust in IFS has been, I got to develop a community of custom coders.
Yeah.
So like I said, I joined about 2 years ago. We got a few folks really psyched up, and okay, let's begin to look at what we can do to bring in the right equipment, the right ovens and all that. And then we had this lovely COVID-19 thing come across. And it kind of just took the wind out of the sails, right? So you keep up the conversation and say, gee, yeah, when I can fly up and see you again, we'll get back on this path. But I'm happy today to say that, we got a nice pipeline of coders, got a couple established, got a nice pipeline of folks that are saying, yeah, we're going to do this, and are connecting to our commitment community, to our equipment community, and they're learning the things they need to do and figuring out, let's get these things installed. Europe, unfortunately, is a little ahead of us. They started there a few years back with the very low cure system and new technology. And they've got, I think, about a dozen coders out there. Some of them, began as coders and just in their local communities found folks that wanted to outsource a bunch of like cabinet doors. And then they just say, the heck with it, we'll go in the cabinet business. So it's funny. I mean, the biggest adopter is I suppose I shouldn't name them, but the world's largest ready to assemble furniture manufacturer. Right, so they've got a coder in Eastern Europe, and they're doing about, between bathroom vanities and day beds, over 9,000 units a day.
Yeah.
Right, and so it comes along pretty nicely, but I don't know.
It goes along with their culture if we're talking about the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of goes along with their culture.
Right.
They've always been leading edge.
And what's very cool, if we think about MDF, which is probably the most RTA furniture is MDF, and a lot of cabinet doors are MDF. But one of the big things was the moisture resistance properties that are out there for things like thermal foil and liquid finishes. The guy that I'm talking about in Eastern Europe that does the coating for the big RTA manufacturer actually have a bathroom vanity inside the front door of their building, encased in a bathroom shower. And they run the shower over it. So when people come in, they say, that's an MDF powder coated bathroom vanity. It's been there 4 years and there's not a crack or peel on it.
To get a video of that on your website.
Yeah, well, next time I get to Eastern Europe, I'm going to get some.
Yeah,
video.
Right. Yeah.
But that's a great solution and value add for the end customer that we all got to keep in mind while we're still thinking about these process things, right?
It's great that you know both the European market and the American market. I'm sure that's a strength that you can play to for sure in terms of understanding the differences.
It's great to have people there who have a few years under their belt that I can call and talk to and learn from their experience. I've also had an opportunity to take a couple of our prospective coders into Europe and walk through some of these facilities. They always welcome us in. So that aspect, it does help a lot, because when the proof of the pudding is a few thousand miles away, you ought to know some people a few thousand miles away.
And what do they think of us? Do they think that America is kind of behind because they're so forward thinking? Their laws and their...
I think that's a pretty well-known reality, that we tend to be more conservative, about adopting new things, because we're pragmatic. I think in America, we don't do things just because they're new. we tend to want to know that this is proved. Sometimes I wish we could be a little more adventurous in that context, but I can either hope or I can acknowledge reality. But the beautiful thing is, hey, America, guess what? It's proved, and there's a great big market to serve and buckets of money to be made. So
yeah. Well, yeah, and I think we like our rules and our standards and our, we like to quantify things that way, right? Just in America.
I guess risk averse in some ways, but once we catch on, we tend to catch on very quickly. And
I think that's a challenge for something that's new, is to gain that momentum. And just I think there's some kind of rule about that, saturation or 10% or whatever it is. There's some formula for it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So let's get into the product. Let's talk about, do you want to bring up the first slide, where maybe I'm going to let you choose which slide you want to go to, because you have a presentation that you normally have.
Yeah, and I won't walk through slides with everybody. We'll just kind of refer to them. But, we start out kind of talking about, here we go. And can you see that? Just let me know if it's sharing properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking about.
I would probably put it in presentation mode if you did. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about, when all this started, really, I think in the 90s with, with the catalyzed thermoset systems, with UV systems, and things like that. And without walking through those, particularly, I talk in general about the challenges that were there, and the historic challenges that and where we are now. We began, we have a temperature sensitive substrate. So we're running.
Yeah, so what are we, I think we've been kind of hinting all along what we're talking about, but for those that haven't gotten it yet, what are we talking about when we're talking about PureClad? What is it? What does it do?
Yeah, so PureClad is the brand that we assigned our product family of products for non-metal substrates, right? So those today include, obviously where we started was the MDF and HDF, the engineered woods, but we since moved on to natural wood species, hardwoods, things like that, fiberglass, and gosh, we talk about drywall, the cladding, these type of things. So every time I look at it and think we've kind of figured out where we're going to go with this as far as opportunity space, the space gets bigger. So essentially it's anything that can handle the time at the temperature that we can adhere to is what's included in it. So it's I mean, right now on this.
But your main sales pitch right now is putting it on MDF and wood products, right? That's kind of what your focus is.
That's kind of the main thrust. And it's always the case with job shops that with job shops, to me, the custom coaters, it's almost like watching Brent Favre play football. He would back up in the back and you'd look at where he was going to throw it and you'd say, no. And then you go, yes, because they caught it, right? And he pulled it off. And that seems to happen a lot. And that's, like I had a guy just doing MDF. The next thing you know, he's showing me these fiberglass gun stocks that he's powder cutting.
Wow. So you're just, I mean, that's the beauty of custom coaters,
The beautiful creativity of the custom coater community. So anyway, it's getting that cure because we you don't want to have to tell a customer that he's got to buy a more expensive substrate for the honor of using your powder, right? And so we want to work on what's there. We've got our cure now at 3 minutes at about 265, 3 to 4 minutes at 265F. And I'll talk more about the chemistry part as we go through. But I think that the key thing to know is that this the solution that really come about as a collaboration with our raw material suppliers is that we're segregating flow and cure from one another. So this system will allow it to flow out until it hits 265. And then once we hit 265, wham, boy, there's just an avalanche of reactivity. And the whole curing can happen. So we get all that time to flow out before we start curing.
Wow.
So we can not only cure this low, we can also flow and flow and flow.
So is this only for line coders or is it for batch coders too?
I think it can work both ways. You have to start looking at scale and efficiency and what makes sense economically, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, IFS is a company that's in the business of finding a way to say yes. So our commitment is, when a custom coder is ready to take the steps to get into this, look, we're gonna help you to find a way to say yes and to get into that.
Right, you're partnering with people to make it happen. Whatever, if they've got the need for it or they know they can pivot to it, then
so it's when it makes sense, we find a way. But there's not a reason that it can't be done in a batch system versus a very large system. I mean, a lot of things like if just stop shooting real quick. And if I'm looking at this, right? So this is a piece of maple wood that has a clear coat that has been tinted to replace a stain, right? And so here, boy, the film thickness has to be just about perfect, right? And so I would say don't get into this without automatics, right?
Right.
And without something.
I don't know how this relates to like the old school method of painting, okay? But staining maple is the hardest.
Yeah.
To do. It is out of everything, cherry, mahogany, any of the other top, pine even, or is crazy, crazy hard to, and it does this unevenness, which lends itself to having to put some kind of a layer in between. We're getting kind of technical in the. We were all self-taught, but we figured that stuff out too ourselves. And it's the worst nightmare you want to have is something coated unevenly, because that's not what the buyer, the furniture buyer is going to want, right? Is they don't want it dark and then light, and they want it even, right? So the eye just wants that too.
Well, the best treatment I ever heard about it was right to the point. I was in Alabama visiting a cabinet manufacturer, and they're talking about staining, and a guy that just is like a what do you call it when somebody, like a doppelganger for Forrest Gump, says to me, staining is hard work. And I said, that pretty much sums it up. But anyway, I took you off track a little bit there.
No, not at all. I mean, I get it. And when I looked at that sample just now, it was hard to convey through the camera, but it was so evenly coated with a stain. That's amazing, because it's laying on the surface. And that's why so many cabinet stainers or cabinet painters today want or like the water-based ones, because they lay on the surface. They don't penetrate the surface like oil-based stains do. So, it made it easier to switch over to these. For me and for us, it was easier for us to start adopting more of the latex-based or water-based stains, as long as you learned the process and you had to develop your own process. Obviously, oil stains are much easier to work with in terms of moving the content around, but the better ones to have were the latex ones if you could master them. And that's the thing, you had to master those first because they dry quickly. You have to move it across the surface. If you don't move fast enough, it starts drying on you. Then you've got other redundancy problems happening, So it seems like
on the onset, this is already solving. So, and the problem is that you've got painters that know these problems. Powder coaters don't always know those problems or those idiosyncrasies that happen within the staining part. But it sounds like you're talking to the right people in getting that understanding.
Yeah, well, I certainly understand it's hard work, and honestly, like I said, I wouldn't try it without automatic guns and knowing that I could really control film thickness, because it does shadow a lot with film thickness variation. But there's robust things to be able to do that. But that's just one kind of extreme example. But I think the coolest part is that finish was done entirely from start to finish in about 7 minutes. So
yeah, that uniformity is flawless if you can achieve it, and that's the really cool thing. Is now kind of we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I mean, in addressing that uniformity, part of that is the moisture, right? Isn't that?
Electrostatics are a big part of it, right? And I think if you go back to the early days of thermoset systems for MDF that are still out there today, your process was really such that, well, I can name them because they're no longer around, but the old Morton system from way back, right? You'd have about 15 minutes in a preheat oven, and the idea was basically to drive all the moisture out of that board so that you wouldn't outgas. And then whenever the application happened, you had a dry board that was really hot, and so the paint would stick to it like flocking.
Right.
Then we got about another 10 minutes in a cure oven, right? Well, this necessitated using really high quality substrate that was able to take that, right? But with this, the advancements that have happened now with chemistry, and particularly with oven systems, indispensable, that moisture becomes our friend. We use it to ground the parts. So whenever I'm putting paint on a piece of MDF, I only want the surface temperature to be about like a hot summer day in Texas, around 120 F. And so I'm not flocking, I'm actually grounding, and I'm actually electrostatically applying that paint. And so this is where I begin to talk about the ovens, because this catalytic IR, and I'll flip to a slide in a minute that'll explain why, but that innovation, changed everything in terms of what we could do without damaging these substrates.
Yeah. So in talking, do you want to flip to that slide, or do you want to continue talking about?
Yeah, let me just kind of hit through these, and we can go from there, but just.
And one of the things you talk about.
To be able to apply to non-conductive.
Yes, we talked about that uniformity on something that is not really conductive, right? How you can achieve
some
that.
Cool stuff.
That is cool. One of the other
electrodes.
Go ahead.
And I'll hit them all.
Yeah,
this was also too a lot. The cured film would often be pretty brittle, especially when we think about UV systems, right? But wood doesn't behave after it's coated. It likes to move around as it absorbs and releases moisture. So we had to have something that was flexible, right?
Yes.
So really the chemistry now, the example of the bathroom vanity and the shower stall in Eastern Europe is a great example of saying, hey, that problem is solved, guys.
Yeah, clearly.
And I think really, if I wrap it all up, the last part was can we collaborate as a value chain, right? That is raw material, powder supplier, equipment supplier, oven supplier, and all get together and figure out what we had to do to make a system work. And so like when I talk to people, I don't just talk by myself. I've got a whole lot of people behind me from throughout the value chain to make it happen. And I guess really the last piece of that puzzle is the custom coder. And I think once we have that in place, which I think is real soon, then I switch back to the life of going and getting OEMs excited about this technology and setting those folks to work.
Yeah, I think adoption is probably what you're facing right now. Is it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's like scaling a huge architectural wall. That's how I feel about the patina powder coat that we're trying to introduce and stuff. It's such a huge market. Kitchen and bath is such a huge market.
Massive, yeah.
How do you get the attention of the right people?
Well, it depends on which group of right people I'm talking to. If it's like if that group is custom coders, I like to show. I'll show one slide here. Talk about what is the business potential.
Mm-hmm. And do you I mean, obviously up until COVID-19 happened and conventions went out the door, I mean, were you doing like conventions and stuff?
Yeah, as much as I could, but let me get this. See, I'm so terrible at flipping around slides, but let me get to the one I wanted. Okay, so if I'm talking to a custom coder, I got to say, what are you interested in? Well, you're interested in business and growing it profitably. This is directly off a website that a cabinet door manufacturer has, and this is you can go just search for cabinet fronts, MDF cabinet fronts, things like this, and you'll find this company or one like them, and they publish their prices online, and you can order from them.
Switch back to the smaller your PowerPoint, because I think with this size that I'm looking at, I'm not seeing that third door.
Oh, there's only two on there.
Oh, okay. Right. I thought, okay. Right? Okay.
Yeah, because I got a couple. There's a couple comparisons, right? All right, so this is on
that's
Maple.
The other one. Yeah, right? We've all been to Home Depot looking for cabinets, right? We all know the differences.
Yeah, so this is solid born painted maple front. You can buy it bare for $25 a square foot, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get primer on it, they want another $15 a square foot. If you want it fully painted, they want almost $19. So that's a 76% markup just for the painting. And I will tell you this, there's probably, I don't know, if I get to about 10,000, I stop counting cabinet manufacturers in the US, spread out all over the place, and they all do finishing, and they all freaking hate it.
Yeah.
So this is one thing. I mean, this is hardwoods, and hardwoods actually isn't the most extreme example, because guess what? I can usually finish that hardwood to a white in about 3 or 4 coats and achieve the opacity I need, right? But here's another one we're competing against is thermofoil.
Mm-hmm.
And thermofoil, I just got to say, PVC thermofoil is bad stuff. It's bad news. You can't recycle the stuff. It emits some pretty nasty stuff over time. But the worst part is the performance just stinks. It peels off a cabinets, it cracks in time. If you've got it near your sink or near your oven, or if it's near a window, it yellows, but it delaminates and it's awful stuff. But anyway, for the pleasure of using the stuff, they want another $12 a square foot. So as pattern, as you pattern coders out there, listen to this. And think about what they're charging per square foot, and think about possibilities. Then call me. Now here's the grand all, right? Which is MDF. MDF loves to soak up paint. Mm-hmm. Consequently, it takes several layers to get opacity with MDF. Now imagine this: they sand that bare piece, and then they put a primer on it, and then they put it through a cure process, and then they sand it again, and then they put a lacquer coat on, and then they run it through a cure process, and then they sand it again. Tell me if I'm boring you, because to finish the thing, I got to say that about 5 more times.
Yeah, and you can't get stains. And if you do, they're kind of fakey looking stain. Wood, it's not like you can only do solid colors, right?
Yeah. No, you can't do solids on MDF, but here's the big deal. It's white paint. I could powder coat that one layer with a superior looking finish, every bit as good a flow, and I can do it in 7 minutes.
That's like name your tune.
Yeah. But for them, it's such a headache. Look, they're charging more for the paint than they are for the door.
Yeah. Wow. It's true. It does suck up a lot of paint for sure.
Yeah.
I think the build time on the MDF is much easier than maybe a solid wood door. But then it's such a labor intensive market. It's insane. It really needs innovation. It really does, Chris. I'm so happy that you're doing this because I'm getting it more. And I'm like, just building the doors and the boxes is so labor intensive.
Yeah.
I remember my old interior design days where I was, it was just insane what you had to do to build a box.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the technical term, I think, is it's a big flipping deal, right? That we have something that is so bad, such an antiquated technology is liquid paint out there still being used for this.
Yeah.
Especially when I start looking at some of the consequences for the environment, for workers. Look up the terms painter's disease.
Oh, yeah. I already know all about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's folks whose lives are ruined. And I'm accustomed.
Most of the painters I know are alcoholics.
Yeah.
Because they smell paint all day long and they got a painter's headache. Then they go and they start drinking their 6-packs or their 12-packs or their 30-packs. And they do that to make the headache go away so they can go back to bed.
Amazing.
Go up, get up and do it all over again. I mean, it's not a very, it's something that needs to change for sure. Nobody needs to be.
Yeah.
I actually had a girlfriend of mine who used to paint cabinets, and she would only paint them in oil. Now I was HVLP, but she would hand paint them. She was that good of a painter.
Right.
She would actually hand paint them instead of taking them, the labor of taking them off, taking them to your shop and all of that. She would actually go to the condo and hand paint them. And she died of cancer. And it came on so suddenly. And it was just, just the nicest person, didn't have a drug problem, didn't have alcohol problem or anything like that. Just hung out in enclosed spaces, painting oil paints for way too long every day of her life. And she died very quickly, and it happens. So I get it.
Well, I mean, there's that aspect. I mean, you look at, what do we put into our environment in terms of hazardous volatiles?
Yeah.
And it's just such bad business too. Excuse me, I'll share the screen again. I burned out my eyes a little bit with the sunlight trying to close that blind, but so look, I mean, oh geez, every time. There we go. I just put this slide together just to make it like as apparent as I could, right?
Yeah.
So if I've got a bucket of liquid paint and I try to analyze, okay, what is going to happen to what's in that bucket? Well, if I'm very good, I can have maybe 65% transfer efficiency, right? And that's if I'm very good at spraying, right? Most companies are nowhere near that good. Well, that overspray is gone forever, right? With a 30%, or this one actually was 33% solids, right? Right up front, everything that's not solids is waste, right? So that's gone, another big chunk. And when I sand layer after layer after layer, and I have to take it off,
sanding it away, right?
I'm estimating you're losing about 5% of the paint you bought. And so you're getting about 10% of that bucket of paint actually on the part, right? And so and if you look, you say, for somebody's really good, like an industrial paint for the biggest chemical manufacturer that anybody can imagine, but I got from them that they were like around $30 a gallon for this stuff, right? And I'm thinking, and on the line, there's the ever-present paint guy from the big company, paint company, who's doing the tinting for them, right? And he just lives there. He's part of the company. He's got a big grin on his face, and he's happy as hell. Well, yeah, he's happy because he's selling 30% solids for $50 a gallon. Right?
Yeah, the pricing just keeps going up. It's amazing. When we first started in painting, obviously a lot of what we were painting were oil-based, because in Hawaii, it just seemed like the best alternative, because I didn't want these people calling me back. I would one and done, out the door, like, don't call me back. I saw stuff where I painted, we were using the Minwax oil-based polyurethane, and, I'd go back 7 years later because they had some other stuff they wanted me to go do. And they're like, oh, you painted our dining room table like 7 years ago and it still looks brand new. I'm like, that's amazing. I was very proud of that moment, but at the same time, like, I didn't want to see these people again. Right. That's why I did what I did. But, when we first got into the industry, I think we were paying $30 for a gallon of, I want to say it was, DeVoe, brand or whatever, for their oil-based gallon for a solid coat, whatever, solid color. By the time within the 10 years that we'd done that, it had gone from $30 a gallon to $60 a gallon. That's how, part of it is regulation. Like, they got slapped with a bunch of laws that they had to comply to, whatever. Yeah. I think they were blaming that. And then who knows, just the cost of oil.
Yeah. Well, another place where we can kind of help these guys, because a lot of them really need to get like their solvent emissions down, their VOC limits down. Mm-hmm. And I've just mentioned this because I just thought of it, but we talk about all those layers to get opacity. Actually, if I give them a board that's primered with powder, regardless of the color, whatever, how light a shade, we were getting opacity in one layer. Mm-hmm. So folks that really like that liquid finish, that prefer it and have to have it, we could still save them a bunch of money and time by eliminating a lot of layers with a primer system.
Yeah, a lot of times when I was seeing like people, like bigger companies, like Home Depot brands, the lower price brands and stuff. I got so good, I could see how they were, I could understand how they were doing it, yeah. And that's kind of what they're doing is they're using a very small amount of base coat, and then they'll add in the color pigments, then their clear coat all in one, just to kind of shoot it, to eliminate some of that. But the problem is if you make a mistake in that process, you basically have to start all over. It's like shooting a rim, and then you mess up or something, contaminate or whatever, and you have to throw it in the stripper, start all over again. So there's some risk involved there with having these shortcut methods to staining and painting cabinets. But I think this kind of could possibly eliminate that somehow, or maybe minimize the mistake level. And I don't know how many cabinet companies make mistakes.
The more automated it is, obviously the better you're going to do. But
yeah, and you've always got that. What is it? Occam's razor, or just that Faraday cage problem. It's where you can't get into that corner or that inner edge or that inner corner. And a lot of times I was painting my finishes with the HVLP. So, I had to come in, dial it down to more of an airbrush kind of appeal to get into that corner, and then go a little heavier over it. And that's how I was getting through those spacers. But when they're a massive company and they're doing boom, 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 major, they don't have time to, their corners don't look as good,
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be surprised, but I was, going to major operations of wood coating on a big scale. But like the QC department was just insane. Just how many people they had doing, well, it was QC and touch up. And boy, just amazing amount of rework. So yeah, with Pattern,
and if you're a good company, you're probably at about 10% throwback. You know what I mean? Or
it's,
right?
It's remarkable how bad it really is. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
that adds, they just have to increase the price per cabinet because of that. So they've got to calculate that in their overhead and stuff.
It's a tough game. I wouldn't get into it without Pattern. I wouldn't do it.
Right. What you know now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wouldn't do it. Not a chance.
Didn't have that choice 10, 20 years ago, right? So, I guess that's kind of like, I guess the one hiccup I have, and maybe you can pull up the slide with the process, process slide. But the first thing I thought of was, okay, you've sanded it, whether it's wood or MDF or done any of that stuff, and you've done your method of prep and production part where you've sanded it, it's ready for its first coat or it's ready for the start of the process.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought of was, okay, you blow it off, you wipe it down. Obviously when you're painting like a rim or something like that, you still have those same processes that you've got to blow off all that extra metal that came through on the sandblasting, or maybe you've got some residual blast dust on there and stuff. In that sense, after you're done doing all that, there's still going to be some level of residual dust still on that surface. As much as you blow it off, wipe it down, whatever. Have you had any?
That's a good question, but no, not really. I mean, obviously you got to segregate where you're coating from where you're sanding, right?
Right.
So, because if you get it in the air, hey, it's going to wind up on the part. But I haven't seen that really as an issue.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. It's I should actually, when I talk about the process, I should start with I should start with this one, actually, because this is if we talk about pre-treat, I don't have any chemicals involved, right? Mm-hmm. But I do want to make sure that the wood is in the humidity or moisture space that I need it to be. And to do that is just a matter of maintaining it in an environment with a constant humidity that's kind of in this range that you see on the screen. Mm-hmm. So with this temperature on the left, humidity on the right, you see it's a pretty broad range, right? I can tell you what happened in Europe was a lot of companies would start with a room that was humidity controlled and store the wood in it overnight to condition it. But they find out really you can condition thousands of square feet with hundreds of dollars. And it's quite a simple thing to do to control your humidity. And so eventually they just do the whole
they were already kind of poised for that anyways, right?
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw it in because that is something that's different. But yeah, I mean, with your moisture content, stabilized between say 5 to 8%. I think with what we call the FFT technology, we can go a little higher than that, be more forgiving. But it generally, the sanding, if as you know from having finished wood before, right? The appearance of your finish relies a lot on the topography of that substrate, right? So unfortunately, we can't eliminate sanding. Now, if you want to go with some heavy textures or something, we can definitely minimize it. But if you want to smooth, it's only going to be as smooth as that finish. So
right, and I guess that's where I was going with the question was, like, if you've got a human prepping that surface, they may not see the little dust particle that they missed, or
it seems intuitive. I mean, even in our little lab that we do, I really don't see that, like sawdust contamination being a problem. I mean, it seems like it ought to be, but no, not really. I mean, we sand it, we blow it off, and we're good to go.
If you're working with someone big enough to where they have an actual separate area where they're separating their dirty room and their clean room kind of thing.
I think you have to have some type of something there, because you would have the sawdust, and if you're over cutting and milling and everything else, that definitely has to be segregated somehow.
Yeah.
But a lot of the larger operations, their finishing operations going to have a positive air control, right? Positive air pressure that's bleeding out and keeping that dust from coming in anyway. But those are the type of controls that we already deal with on the metal side. We're pretty darn familiar with,
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I wouldn't want to, my guy standing and cutting wood right next to where my spray booth is. Absolutely not.
Yeah. You definitely need, when you're in that business, you need a lot of square footage. For sure.
Yeah.
We had our process pretty good. We still had a small shop. And so we were doing everything all in one room, but we were very methodical about it. So, and Ross obviously handled a lot of the maintenance and janitorial responsibilities, but, we just had a method that we had to follow. And anytime we ever deviated from it, it didn't, something had to be shot over or whatever, Yeah,
those shortcuts that save you so much time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is probably starting to look, from here on out, from kind of like metal coating, right? So kind of focus on the differences. Obviously, we can still do line densities that are much higher than you can do with liquid finishes. So if we're talking about just, if somebody's looking to push a whole lot through a line very quickly, we can still, those benefits are still there. Preheat is a pretty constant part of our process for engineered woods. For natural wood, sometimes it's not necessary, but what we're looking to do there is just get that surface temperature up hot enough to homogenize the moisture content, and that's the electrostatic properties. But you know what? I'll talk without it getting boring. I'll say beginning of this to the end of it is around a 7-minute process. So it's
that is incredible. Can you imagine the amount of, just to cut that down to 7 minutes, that alone would be like, sign me up. You know what I mean?
I'll talk about a big part of the reason that it's possible, because I don't want to do this without, because this is one of the things. Anytime I get somebody email the Pure Clad address, it's always the first thing I got to explain, is that, if you don't have this oven tech, you really shouldn't get into this. And really, this is why. This is from a IR spectrophotometer reading, right? Of energy at different spaces along the wavelength of IR radiation, right? Well, there happens to be at this between 3 and 4 micron wavelength, this wonderful spot where powder paint and other organic materials love to absorb energy. And so what this means is, like if I give you a tech data sheet for a powder that you might buy for our metal coatings, it may say, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, metal temperature for 12 minutes. Everybody's familiar with that. Well, this technology that what I send you is I say I want 265 degrees Fahrenheit for 4.5, 5 minutes, right? But I say surface temperature, because with this oven, I don't need to heat up the substrate in order to cure the paint. So it really minimizes the amount of heat that I'm delivering into that material. And in terms of where we can go with heat-sensitive substrates. Just as a rule of thumb, because these have, and I start to sound like an oven sales guy, I'll let you know that I'm not. I just think this is a really cool thing. If you're looking at catalytic IR versus convection, rule of thumb is about 1/3 of the time. You'll be able to achieve your cure in about 1/3 of the time that you're now achieving, right? And that's kind of a big deal. So if you have 15-minute at 400 cure time, well, now we're thinking 5 minutes at 400.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of productivity, it's amazing. But in terms of non-metal substrates, I would say it's not just amazing, it's essential. So
Right.
there's two categories there. Just pictures on the bottom. The gas system, you won't see the colors, right? This is electric on the right. I'll just quickly talk about, well, this is for the FFT. Like we won't even sell it to you without it. So that's how essential we think it is, right?
So you've got the oven, the powder, or the chemical formulation.
Yeah.
And then,
I'll talk about some of the application tricks.
yeah. So
kind of share real quick is that you got two options to get in this catalytic range, and it's gas and electric. And just like the electric's going to be cheaper to buy. They have wonderful controls. They work just fine. And they have some advantages, but gas generally is going to be a lot more forgiving and a lot lower operating costs over the long term. So just to hit
I don't know. I beg to differ. Our electric ovens save us lots of money, but
is that right?
Well, we pay very, very high gas prices here. So
yeah, so it's going to depend on where you are, right? Because I think around here it's, I mean, gas, you're talking about something like 2 cents a kilowatt hour versus electric somewhere around 12, right?
Yeah, it's
yeah.
I think it's but I Ross likes the electric not just because of that, but because there's a lot of other. I think the cook is a little bit more even, at least the way he builds the oven. He finds that it.
Yeah. Well, some of the controls are amazing. The precision that you can do with it is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, going from metal to wood, like I say, it works for wood, but what I find is that gas is more forgiving for us.
Yeah.
Because we want to get that wavelength on, and with the gas, there's such a wide distribution of that wavelength to hit all surfaces, whereas with electric, it's a lot more, I'd say, confined to its borders.
So how has been the reception so far in the industry? And I know you're just getting started and COVID happened and all of that. So how have you had a lot of pushback, or have you had a lot of scratching heads? Have you had I need more proof?
I think most folks get it, right? And out of the folks that get it, I always say, that say 1 out of 5 out of 1 out of 5 out of 1 out of 5 is an early adopter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, because I'm convinced of a lot of things that are wonderful ideas, right? Like, should I, wouldn't it be cool if I could have a chateau in the southern part of Paris, right? And I'm into that idea, right? But if you go with 1,000 people and you ask them, is that a great idea? Would you love it? They've all, hell yeah, I would, right? And you say, okay, it's going to take a little investment. It's going to take a little learning. It's going to take a little risk. Well, you just lost 8%.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I think for everybody, I mean, because look, IFS isn't in this to lose money, right? We're not out of it. I mean, I feel great about it, what we're doing, for the environment and what we're doing for people, and the ultimate effect is really good, but we don't want to do it at a loss, right? So, as always, you're looking and you say, okay, this is speculative. We've invested mightily in it, right? Our suppliers, our allied suppliers have all invested money. We all bought into it and say, we're going to get this done, right?
Right.
I'll be honest with you, I don't have a plan B. I don't have a plan B. So I either make this work or so long, Reading, and I'll be banished to some, I don't know, French chateau in the South,
Right. And that was
best case scenario.
It was funny because after reading through everything on the link, which will be in just if anybody's interested, we'll make sure to put those links you shared with us in the podcast episode. But that that was kind of like, why take that risk? Why? I mean, it's always great to hear innovations or about someone innovating. We too are innovators, so we get it. But I know that a lot of people would probably look at this and go, why take the risk? Why do this? Why beat your head up against the wall till it's bloody trying to talk to people about something that,
when you look and this is, I think, a message for all of us and all powder people, and especially the PCI powder people like me, is because I was talking about, we're not done growing. There's a lot more place for us to go. And you got to put it in your heart and make it your cause if you're going to be one of those folks that win a lot from it. Because think about our story in middle. And, it started out with people that, man, this is risky business. We're gonna take this, take paint, take all the liquid out of it, charge it up and put it on stuff, and people are going to buy it. Yeah, right. Well, somebody bought into that stupid idea. And now look at us, right? Yeah. So it all begins with that. I think, I'm not by nature a crazy risk taker. I'm quite conservative. But like I said, I don't have a plan B because I'm pretty darn sure about this because the math just adds up,
Yeah. Yeah. And sharing and conveying that passion you have for it, it can be infectious in and of itself,
Yeah. Well,
I'm not sure about that video that you have, the animated video.
Well, you know what that was? It was like, okay, we got to throw something out of here.
Yes. Okay.
This stuff. I liked it.
Did you?
And it really, I'm kind of hurt that you're not amazed by it because it's pretty amazing. Don't you worry, we'll get some more expensive videos out eventually. But I thought it was pretty good, and you desperately hurt.
I felt that the cartoon characters were not something, they weren't convincing enough.
Well, okay, that's your opinion.
The animation was not not enough for me.
I did it on the cheap,
I'm calling you out.
It's okay. Tell you what, we'll have more video. We'll have some more kind of live video going, I think.
What you need is some sexy mama with her little, her baby and her glass of wine or something in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Spilling, the kids throwing stuff on the wall, that kind of thing. She's spilling her wine.
And she can wipe off the cabinet and look how easily it wiped off. Yeah. Well, look, could have a man do that.
I don't know.
One last thing I want to hit on the technology side, because I've talked about the advancement.
Yes, this was an important
chemistry
slide.
Can do. But I want to talk because the application side. Wow, had some cool stuff happen, right? So for some reason, this stuff likes to wrap around on wood even more than it does on metal, picture framing and all this type of thing. And we have the same issues with back ionization, the different defects. I look at especially now that I'm looking at Facebook and all the jobber communities that are on there. And, you were talking about the wheels, and I cry for these guys when I see a guy put up his wheel and it's got, you can see back ionization or something all over it. And it's like, and all of his buddies just tell me, I'm sorry, dude. You just gotta start over. But,
what happened? Question.
Yeah. some cool ideas to deal with that.
A lot of times I just get tired because of the same question over and I'm like, I'm not. Somebody else can answer that one.
What cracks me up, though, is when, the first guy sees it's back ionization, right? So it says that's back ionization, do this, right? And then 50 more people will say back ionization, back ionization, back ionization. And then somebody else says, no, it's oil. Oh, damn it. We've all agreed it's back ionization. Leave him alone. Let him go fix it, But it's been fun. I've never really been active on Facebook before, and it's well, we got this out there. I got to go have a look, So I've got like 3 friends, but I am having fun looking at it and commenting on it.
There is no lack of Facebook powder coating groups. It seems like every day there's 10 more started. And I'm like, no, we don't need another Facebook group. We need a tribe. We need a place for all of us to go hang out.
Do you know of any resource where somebody could find jobbers in their community?
Oh, I like your sense of humor, Chris. I think I need a glass of wine in Paris, France with you.
You should have jumped on that. You should have jumped on that and said, oh, hell yes, I do, in fact. But you got to throw in a commercial for that at some point here.
I need, tell me who your animator is. Get right on that.
Leave my animator alone.
Okay.
Terrible. Didn't know I'd be abused like this.
Joking aside, we've got a very serious slide up here, so I'm going to let you finish it.
Yes, we do. And these are just as applicable to metal as wood, so I think I'll show them. But
sure.
This is probably stuff. This is an old trick, right? If you're having too much wrap, ground a piece of metal, put it behind the rather than wrap, your powder will be drawn to that rubber
ball. So it goes, it hits over it. That's smart. I like that. I'm going to show that to Ross.
Yeah. I invented that. So.
Oh.
Actually, no, it's been around forever, but you can't even buy a rubber bar because it's too easy to make one. You just ground a piece of metal and put it behind your part, right?
Yeah.
But it works great for like a batch process. If you're using it in a continuous operation, you're going to pretty often have to blow paint off of it and stuff. But it's an effective way to do it. It's not super precise, but it works. It works really well if you're going with fatty edges, right?
Definitely.
But the creme de la creme is this counter electrode that the equipment side came up with here a few years ago. This is such wonderful precision. Well, let me explain it first. Okay, so your powder is giving a negative charge by the gun, right, in your corona field, and you have your grounded substrate. And behind it here, what we've got is a bar with a that creates a positive field.
Yeah, so it's pushing back
behind it, right? So when the negatively charged powder meets the positive field, it neutralizes, falls down, right?
Yeah.
This is so precise that if you can imagine can you even see my cursor?
Yes, I can.
So if you can imagine a line down this edge, you can make it look like it was masked.
Okay.
It's that precise how you can move that field in and out.
So is it pushing back or just neutralizing it? When you
all it's doing is neutralizing,
Okay.
Yeah, so there is another approach to this, right? That with a negative field, so you get negative, they repel and go away. I'm told that it works really well. I've not seen that, so just intuitively, it doesn't add up to me a lot, but I have seen this, and it's amazing. So. Yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. Just the visual really helps too, because everybody can relate to this to the heaviness on the edges. In fact, Ross, I got a sample of it right here in my shop because Ross has got a lift kit, part of a lift kit, and I guess what they do is they buy these panels that go when the trucks are lifted so high. They got these panels, and the panels mount in behind the tire, so that you don't see the spring all dirty and stuff. It's like you can wash the panel and just see the panel. And it's a flat CNC piece. And of course, all the edges are heavy. And of course, he's using a transparent. And, there's always troubles with transparency anyway. So, yeah.
So that's kind of spiel. That's the kind of stuff we're doing.
I like your spiel. Yeah. I wish you the best because this is certainly innovative. Yeah, I know.
Well, right. So there's a piece of plywood, right, with an oak fascia, and it's clear coated with powder paint. Is that neat?
To me, if I was to hold that sample, the first thing I would look for is just how flawless the clear coat is. That's just insane, and it's
particularly flawless.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got look, there's a chair leg. The stain alternatives on it?
Yeah, and you got sunlight coming through your window, so it's kind of Just I need a visor.
I can't get it to stop, but so this is like is. Yeah, they've done some pretty cool stuff, but probably the coolest is the clear.
I like that clear coat.
Hope you appreciate that one.
Makes all your problems go away.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Anything else I can try to clear up for you before we go?
I love it. I think it's great. I'd say let's talk about where people can find you.Maybe share your email if they have an interest, or phone number, wherever are you found?
Yeah, I'm easy to find. It's pureclad at ifscuttings.com.
Okay. In that web of a website.
It's a wonderful website. Did you get lost in it? We're working on it.
I probably could have gone to France and had a glass of wine.
You love that.
And then I would have found it. Yeah.
You're talking about the animation again, aren't you? I'll tell you what, we're going to make the most knock 'em dead animation after this that even you will have to approve. So. I know you're an animation snob over there in Hawaii.
Oh, I get you where I can. Are you heading over? Are you planning on being at the Coder Week in April?
I'm speaking.
Are you speaking?
Yes, I am.
How come you didn't mention that?
I've always been shamelessly bad at self-promotion, but yeah, I'll be speaking there.
Oh, that's awesome. And are you going to be talking about pure?
I am. I'm going to talk all about alternative substrates.
So I get to hear this all over again.
Oh, but you'll hear all kinds of new stuff. But what I'm going to do now is be sure to include that animation in my presentation there. But yeah, I'm kind of a big deal. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
But listen, I am very happy to hear from anybody and talk about this stuff.
Maybe you can use this video on your website instead of that animation.
I don't know, but we didn't have a cool little British accent. You didn't, because.
Is that Fiona?
No, I actually, if you like it, I'd give Fiona credit, but if you don't like it, I'll be honest with you. I pushed that. And I said, it's got to be a English accent lady, because if you look at all our, how many commercials do you see where you would never take the product seriously, and then they have a British accent? And you go, wait just a minute. That guy's English.
Only Americans think that.
We do it big time. It's like, I've got to order that tea. That was an English accent, right? And I don't care what it is, but we have some credibility. Agree. Yes. And that was the marketing genius behind the
that is the marketing genius of Chris Ray.
Well, like I said, if you didn't like it, I'll take the blame, but I got to give credit to Fiona. She's the one that does all this stuff.
I thought that was Fiona.
She makes me look good, and I don't appreciate. She
makes everybody look good over there.
She makes me look a lot better than I deserve. I'll tell you that.
Oh man, I didn't think I'd be laughing this hard through a podcast.
What could be more exciting and compelling to talk about than alternative substrates and powder coatings?
Yes.
There you go.
Exactly.
I'm glad I could be entertaining. Have a wonderful weekend. And the rest of us, where it's cold, we'll just continue to envy you. So.
Yeah, sounds good. I'll try to get this out as soon as I can.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.